Hello and welcome back to Economically Speaking, a podcast where we dive into economic policies and trade dynamics all over the world and how they affect us in Nigeria. Today, I am your host and I'm Nonye Ofili, the head of the NESA Broadcast Division in Pan-Atlantic University. Today, we'll be talking about trade tariffs and how they affect us in Nigeria. Joining me to discuss this is Ndifrekeabasi, Etukudoh, and Kennena, Ofor. It's great to have you both here.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
Alright, so when you hear the word tariff, what is the first thing that pops into your head?
Well, I would say on my own end, when I hear tariffs, I just think of taxes on imports. Anything that has to do with the importing goods, most especially foreign goods, the tax we place on them is what I think tariff is in a nutshell.
Yeah. Why do you think countries decide to slap extra taxes on things coming from abroad, products that come from abroad?
Well, there are several reasons for this, such as protecting your infant industries in your own country. They can also be used as a bargaining tool in international relations. They can also be used to generate revenue for different things in the country.
Alright, so for those who may not be economically inclined, a tariff is basically a compulsory levy placed on goods that are imported from an external country by a home country. Okay, so right, tariffs are meant to protect local businesses, like you said. But who do you think ends up paying those tariffs? Is it the companies importing the goods, or is it the consumers like us?
Well, initially, the companies importing the goods pay these tariffs, but eventually the overall cost is transferred to the consumers in the form of increased prices.
Yeah.
I actually agree with that. From an area perspective, one would think that companies bear the burden of tariffs, but in actual sense, the customers bear the cost of these tariffs through prices.
Yeah. So an increased price is really what is used to set off the payment for said tariffs.
Basically.
Yeah. So with the recent United States tariffs on some Nigerian exports, how do you think it impacts industries in Nigeria, the ordinary Nigerians, farmers, business owners, and even us students? What kinds of challenges might we face because of said tariffs?
Basically, high costs. Because when people import American products, basically foreign goods, the costs of those tariffs have an effect on the prices that we as Nigerians pay for those goods, and also causes damage to the domestic industries here, because now they're having to battle with foreign goods being in the markets, because they basically will have probably better packaging, better this, better that. So they have to deal with the competition of foreign goods, as well as also dealing with, we as customers have to deal with the prices. So I would say that business owners deal with competition when the U.S. has increased their tariffs, as well as customers have to deal with increased prices.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, there's also like the increased prices. There's also like increased business opportunities for these farmers and for these ordinary citizens. Because yes, now like they have to pay more for the cost of their own of the tools that they use in their businesses. They also have more people who can no longer afford to import from abroad now. Like a popular example I like to use is like actually Nigerian made cars. And when it comes to expensive to import cars from abroad, what's start using these Nigerian made cars?
yeah, that's a very good point. So some countries like those in the European Union, have very low or even no tariffs amongst themselves. What kind of impact do you think this has on their prices and the business world in those places?
Oh, okay. In those countries, you notice that prices are commonly very low, because since there are no taxes on imports, people can import freely without too much additional taxes on those imports. The examples of these are like the North American countries have an agreement to make sure that trade is free and flowing for all without any taxes.
So how would that better the businesses that are operating in the European Union?
I feel like it will give them more connection. It builds their network as European countries, where you can get from this country, you can get from this country, and it boosts the European economy as a whole. Because as economists, we do what's called specialization. So if this country specializes in this and that country specializes in this, it builds the European economy as a whole, because they are benefiting from this country in one aspect, but they are benefiting from that country in another aspect.
Yeah.
So that's how I believe the European countries benefit from lower tariffs.
Yeah. So on the flip side, there are countries that have higher tariffs to protect local industries. Can you think of examples where this can help set economies or where it can cause a problem for the country?
Well, an example would be Brazil, which in the mid-20s had higher taxes, which eventually did actually help its domestic industries to grow and promote itself.
I think South Korea around that 1960s to 1970s also had high tariffs, and it boosted their economy to the point, because those high tariffs were able to protect their domestic industries. So when their domestic industries got stronger, they were able to compete globally. But on the flip side, we also have Venezuela that still have high tariffs, and they have still not progressed economically. So I would say that tariffs in the long run is not effective, but in the short run can boost the economy.
Yeah. And other methods in the long run may be investing in other industries like education and job training to help in the long run.
It's not sustainable to build the economy in the long run, but in the short run it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've read that tariffs can lead to something called trade wars, where countries keep adding tariffs back and forth. What sorts of problems do you think this can cause for global supply chains and for people who are trying to buy everyday goods?
Well, I would say trade wars. I mean, it's a war, so you definitely know it's going to have a negative effect. So, as you said earlier, one of the biggest effects tariffs have on the consumers is higher costs, higher prices. So when these wars happen, you're increasing costs and prices for consumers in both countries, which gives a ripple effect on other aspects of the economy. So trade wars have such a negative effect on the consumers. It makes standard of living harder because cost of goods are also high.
An example of this would be like the current U.S China war, which has caused so many problems, not for like people that are engaged in the war, but rather for the everyday individuals.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who have to buy products at a higher cost. And also there was stories of China actually selling faker products to US just because the trade wars. As you can see, there's a lot of problems for everyday individual.
For countries that want to grow new industries, do you think tariffs are going to be a good long-term plan for them? Or are there better ways to support these businesses without involving tariffs?
I said earlier that long-term tariffs are not sustainable for economic growth, but short-term they are.
Okay.
Well, I feel like they can have the benefits, to be very honest. Like, as much as they don't support in the long term, in that initial phase, I think it's very important because an industry can't grow in a country where it already has a reliance or a dependence on abroad on the other countries for products. Because they can't compete at that level of the other countries. They've already been doing it for several years.
Alright, so I would like to add, it's important to also know that when it comes to growing industries, tariffs are only but a factor. The country can have low tariffs and still not grow their industries. Domestic production also comes from, investing in human capital and also other forms of capital like machinery, having processing plants instead of exporting just primary products. So it's also important for countries to invest in their capital if they are trying to grow an industry, because it is beyond just protecting the infant industries. After you protect them, you still need to lift them up. Yeah. So lastly, for students listening today who might be thinking about their future careers, why is it important to understand trade policies and trade tariffs? How can this knowledge help them in the real world?
Tariffs are very important in the business aspects, especially as young people. Many of us want to dive into business, so we need to know what could cause our raw materials to be expensive, what could, in terms of expansion, and when we think of expansion, we think of how do we export and everything. So we need to have basic knowledge about tariffs, to handle the business aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
In as the economy as a whole, going to your everyday, doing your typical shopping, and you realize that this product has a higher price than this, and somebody tells you this is a foreign product, this is a local product. Immediately you hear statements like that, you should click as to why this is higher than this. So it gives you basic knowledge on things like business and even everyday consumption and spending.
Even in school, we have several courses teaching about the international relations and goings of the world. And tariffs are one of the most important factors of these international relations. So knowing these as a student will help you have an advantage in any job, in any class, in any general workings of an economist. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's important for the common man to know what tariffs are. It's very good for us to even know what, for some people who may not even have known what a tariff is up until this. So a tariff is very, very important for the common man because at the end of the day, in the economy, you are involved. You are a consumer, so you are involved in the economy, even in the micro level. So it's important for everybody to know to know updates about what trade tariffs are coming up, what deals are coming up, because people who buy things, people who are in business, and even just consuming. You may go to the market today and buy something at 5,000 naira, but if you're not keeping up with trade tariffs or any economic changes happening in your country, you come back and you see the same thing was probably 15,000, but you did not budget for that, and to seem like, oh well, this happened out of nowhere. So it's important for the average person to always keep themselves aware of what is happening in their economy, because of the impact that can have on them as consumers and even as possible business owners. Thank you for listening to us today. That's the wrap on today's episode. Tariffs may seem like they are something so far, but they're actually something very close by, because even though it happens in the macroeconomic level, it affects all of us in the microeconomic level.